Hello there, this is Heather Stuart from Connecting to Bliss Coaching. And I first want to take this moment to say thank you. Thank you for taking the time to watching this video. And thank you for taking the time to think about and give yourself the space to discovering what makes your heart sing. There's only so much time and energy we have in a day, and giving yourself this time and giving me this time to help you, I'm really appreciative of. So again, thank you. Before we get started actually in this masterclass, I'm just going to ask you to maybe pause it and go collect a piece of paper and a pen. You don't need it immediately, but you will need it at one point during the presentation. So if you need to pause and go grab a pen and paper, that'd be great. And again, let's just get started. So again, my name is Heather Stewart. I am a coach with Connecting to Bliss Coaching. And I'm here to help the viewers of this video find what makes their heart sing and implementing more of that in our lives. So I'd like to challenge anyone who is looking at these pictures and ask, did you not smile when you see these pictures of these adorable children just living their best life? I have a little one myself, and one of the biggest lessons that she's taught me is that kids know so much more about the importance of doing what feels good and living in the moment and just releasing all expectations. And when you see these pictures of these adorable children just doing the things that make them feel good, it's really just such a key reminder that that's just not the way we have it as adults. And something happens because we end up looking something like this, looking or feeling something like this. And it begs the question, what's happened to our personalities and the way we are and our behaviors, that when we grow up, we completely forget about the things that make our hearts sing, the things that make us feel light and joyful and fun. And it all comes down to loaded expectations that often we tend to put on ourselves. And they often leave us feeling so much heaviness from responsibility and guilt and pressure and the weight of our jobs and responsibility of having to take care of ourselves and our family and financially just being responsible. And it I'd love to challenge you to think about when that changed for you, when you stopped having fun, and when did you stop doing the things that created joy for you? And seemingly you're viewing this session today because you have that sense of longingness for that joy and that fun and that light and that excitement and the love that you used to have as a child. And I'm not saying you need to revert back to being irresponsible and being completely void of all responsibility. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is being able to have a life of having a career and a family and all these things, but also taking the time and giving yourself the space to find the joy and find love and to find laughter and fun and all those things that really make our heart feel filled up and full of joy. So I want to ask you a few questions, and this kind of relates to why you're watching this video and what drew you to watching this video. Do you have a short fuse? Do you find yourself really reactive to a lot of things? Do you long for time for yourself and often feel angry when you see others being able to do that? Do you get resentful towards those people and go so far as like pick fights with them, or just feel a lot of harbored resentment towards the people that seemingly are able to do everything that they want to do whenever they want to do it? Do you feel like you're a hamster on a wheel, just doing the same thing every single day? And do you think all you do is work, sleep, clean, cook, watch TV, but there's no real joy in what you are doing in a day? Or have this feeling of, is this it? Oftentimes these types of feelings is directly correlated to the lack of joy, the lack of fun, and the lack of lightness in our lives. And again, that's seemingly probably why you found this video and why you're taking the time out of your day to watch it. And it all comes down to us not filling our cup with what makes our heart sing. And you probably heard that term thrown around a lot, but the reality of it is that it is part of our responsibility to fill our own cup. Not everyone in our lives can fill up our cup for us. They can give us drops and maybe half a cup, but the responsibility of us and us having a joyful, fun, loving, wonderful life is that we have to find the ways and do the things that we know are going to fill up our cup, whether it be self-care, whether it be learning and growth, whatever that is. But that's what this session is all about. So I have a couple other questions for you to think about. Do you believe that if you want to be successful, you have to focus less on having fun and more about working hard all of the time? Is this you? Are you serious all the time? Do you feel like in order for you to have that success, you have to work all the time? Or do you believe in order to set yourself up for success and be a valued member of your family, friendships, and careers, you need to find balance between joy and responsibility? My philosophy about self-care is all about giving the people around you and your career and your friends and your family and everyone around you the best of you, not what's left. And that really comes down to giving yourself the time that you deserve to have self-care and to do the things that fills your cup, that gives you joy. So that's really one of my core philosophies when it comes to helping people and that's one of the big challenges that I had when I first became a mom is understanding that self-care isn't selfish. Self-care is the absolute opposite to selfish as long as it's done with the right intent and with the right means, and it's done for the right reasons. And so that's what I want to help you all do today. The other reality is that we're all busy. We all have a lot of things to do and take care of, but there are 24 hours in a day, and there are lots of people out there that seemingly have it all put together, or they seemingly have 48 hours in a day, when the reality is that we all have the same 24 hours, and it's just what you do with it and what you do with those hours and how it impacts you in the biggest possible way. And thinking about the things that you do throughout the day and what type of impact those things can have on you and what's going to give you the biggest impact is a smart way of dealing with time management and the busy lives that we have. Everyone has the same 24 hours. So the people that you see being able to have their cup filled more often are just more mindful on where they're putting their time and energy. So how about you dedicate some of that time to becoming a more fulfilled, better version of yourself and filling your time with things that are going to make you that better version, whatever that looks like for you, whether it's like I said, learning and growing, taking a class, whether it be self-care, it could be simple, like taking a bath. But the impact of taking that bath is larger than doing something else, like doing your nails or whatever. We'll get into what that actually looks like. But I just want you to think about how an impact of doing something in your day can actually impact the rest of your day, and putting the time and focus into the things that actually are going to give you more of a positive impact. So who's ready to find out what makes their heart sing? Who's ready to discover the things that will really fill their heart with joy and love and laughter and fun and rediscover those types of things and stop being the hamster in a wheel and stop just feeling like this is it. This is your life, and it's up to you to make it the way you want it to look. What is your legacy going to be? Is it going to be work, or is it going to be living a full and joyous life? So this is at the point where I'm going to ask all the viewers to get your pen and paper ready. I'm going to be asking you some questions, and ideally you would write them down, and it could take some reflection time after the session is over. So I invite you to write them down. And if it does take that reflection, take the time you need. It's really important that you give yourself the time and space. So once you've got your pen and paper ready, I'm going to ask you some starter questions first. And these ones you do not have to write down the answer to. You certainly can if you want to, but really this is about getting the creative juices flowing, getting you thinking about behaviors and activities that have felt joyous to you in the past, or just getting those juices flowing. So I'm going to ask these simple questions. You do not have to write them, but you can write down the answers if you so desire. So the first question I want to ask you is, what activities did you love doing as a kid? When you think about your childhood, what were the activities that you loved to do, the ones that you could not wait to do, whether it be get outside or whatever it is? I want you to think back to when you were a kid, because we're still that kid. That kid is still within us. So having an understanding of what felt good as a kid can help point you in the right direction to what feels good now as an adult. The second question I want you to think about are, what are you great at? What are your best talents and natural abilities? And is there something potentially that you feel like you would be good at, but maybe haven't tried before, and you feel like that's worth some exploration? Next, I want to ask you, what do you do that afterwards you feel like you've really taken good care of yourself? And the best way to describe the feeling is like that cup. You just feel really filled up, like you feel really taken care of. You're like, wow, I feel really good about myself. I just took really good care of myself. Whatever that feeling is for you. And that's what a lot of what we're going to talk about when it comes to what makes your heart sing. It's a feeling that you get when you do these activities. So what is an activity that afterwards you feel like you've really got that filled up cup feeling? And I want you to think about the last time in the last 12 months that you've laughed really hard, smiled so much that your cheeks hurt, or felt the most fulfilled. And what were you doing in that time? The next thing I want you to think about is that if you were to label the activity that you love doing the most with a one-word action, what would you say that is? And this is going to help you being creative in the sense of, maybe you can't do the activity that makes your heart sing, but maybe you can create another way to fulfill that activity. Let's just say, okay, so some of the examples that I had come up with were helping, playing, loving, giving, making, drawing, or writing. So those are the one word actions that would you could use to describe what you really like to do. And maybe you are a giver. You love to give things, but maybe you don't have a lot of things to give, or you don't have a lot of money to give. Maybe it's about being creative, and maybe you're not giving things, maybe you're giving your time. And so what makes your heart sing is giving, but you're just changing the what you give to something that you're actually capable of doing at this point. So that's why I want you to think about the action word behind what you really love to do, and that could help you in being more creative when coming together with an actual plan of what you're going to do. Next is, how much time have you given yourself just to help you feel good in the last 3 to 6 months? And the recording of this video is actually the 3rd of November of 2020. And so we're still in the midst of a pretty serious, well, a very serious pandemic. And so the last 3 to 6 months for a lot of people have been pretty tricky. And so I really want you to think about, in the last 3 to 6 months, what have you done in that time to help you feel good? Because when times are tough, and when humanity or you or your family or whoever is going through a tough time, self-care and doing these things is, one, the first thing that gets hucked out the window, and two, more important to do than any other time, because that is what's going to give you the right tools to set yourself up for getting through the tough time. And so I really want you to think about how much time you've dedicated to look after yourself in the past 3 to 6 months, and is that enough time for you to feel like you have the right tools to move forward in troubled times? And how do you feel after you put some time and energy into doing something for yourself? Let's say it's simple, like taking a bath. How does that make you feel? Again, this whole thing is about what makes your heart sing. That's not just an activity, that's a feeling. So really want you to think about the feeling that you get when you do things that make yourself feel good. And what activities do you think you'd like to try and haven't yet? And maybe think about why you haven't tried them. Maybe there's something that you can't get around in regards to logistics or something like that. So those are just some of the starter questions that I wanted to kind of bring up in regards to thinking about what makes your heart sing. Remember, it's about the feeling that these activities evoke, and how you can incorporate that in your life. So now this is where I want you to start using your pen and paper. So I want you to actually write down the first 10 activities that come to your mind in regards to what you want to do and what things help you feel like your heart is singing, or your cup is filled, or you feel joyous or love, or whatever that feeling is that you want more in your life. So write down activities or aspirations that mean the most to you and give you the most amount of joy. But also these activities have to inspire you to give more time and energy to them. That's the reality, is that we may have this list of things that we really want to do, but unless it's inspiring us to actually put the energy in, it's just a list of words. And so I really want you to focus when you're writing these 10 things down to think about how does it inspire you to want to have these activities or want those feelings in your life more. Maybe it is just about simple self-care, like taking a bath or making sure you spend some time being creative with your makeup, or maybe it's about hanging out with your friends more. Maybe it's learning a new skill, or taking time to read a book when you're feeling stressed out or anxious, or any of those sorts of things that is really going to inspire you. And I want you to think about how that activity is going to impact how you feel after you do it. If you sit and read a book for 2 hours, how are you going to feel after that 2 hours? And is that inspiring enough to actually implement that activity into your life? So if you haven't written down your 10 things, I urge you to just pause this video until you've done that. But I will move forward on to the next section. So again, if you haven't written down your 10 things, pause the video for a few moments, finish that list, and then play it again. Now that you've written your 10 things, that's amazing. Congratulations. That's your first step. Now what I'd like you to do is, of those 10 things, select 3 to 5 things that make your heart sing the most. And these are the things that you really want to invest your time in at this point in your life. So when you look at your 10 things, maybe one of your things is travel. And as I mentioned, this video is being done in the middle of a pandemic. Travel is not really a thing right now. So maybe at this point in our lives, travel can't be one of our 3 to 5 things. So what I want you to think of is, on your list of 10 things, pick out the 3 to 5 top things that you are willing to and are excited to invest some time and energy in the next 3 to 6 months, let's say. And again, I really want you to think about the impact that completing these activities and doing these activities will have on your life and on your emotions and on your feelings. And are they going to give you the most bang for your buck? Sorry to use such a cheesy term, but it's really about little activities that give you big impact. And that's what's going to help keep you motivated to doing these activities more. So, and how I want you to write down these 3 to 5 things is that on your piece of paper, I'd like you to make 2 columns and write down the 3 to 5 things on a column on the left-hand side. So number them 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or however many you have, and then split your piece of paper into 2 sides. And on the other side, just leave the column blank for a moment. We're going to work with that in a few moments. But I want you to write down the 3 to 5 things that really inspire you to put some energy and time into it, and that you really feel is going to make your heart sing and gives you joy when you think about these activities. And so it's action time, guys. And I know this session was called What Makes Your Heart Sing. And so theoretically we could just be like, hey guys, see you later. Thanks for watching my video. But what is the point of having this list if you're not going to actually implement it? So we want to discover not only what makes our heart sing, but how we're going to get more of it in our life. That's the whole reality of this, is that we want more joy in our life. We want more fulfillment in our life, and we want more of that filled up cup, heart singing, yes, this is an amazing activity that's gonna have lasting impacts for you. So this is where we're gonna think about how we're going to implement more of this in our lives. And the reality with humanity is that in order for real change to happen, and that's exactly what we're doing by implementing these activities in our lives, is we are changing our behavior. We need to be fully invested in the why. And that's why I've really stressed the importance of understanding what these feelings are going to implement for you, how they are going to make you feel, because that knowledge and that awareness of those feelings and what they're going to do for you and the impact that they will have for you is what's going to keep you more motivated. Outcomes are the motivation of all behaviors. So I want you to think about a change that you implemented prior to, or a big goal that you went for. Maybe let's say you worked your butt off to get a new job. Well, why did you work your butt off to get that job? Well, the outcome of getting that job was motivating to you, whether it be more money or a new challenge or whatever the reason was. You didn't work your butt off just to simply work your butt off. You worked your butt off for that why as to the outcome of what was going to happen. And so the other reality with changing behavior is that people are naturally uncomfortable with change. It's a natural instinct. So ensure that you leave this session today not only knowing what makes your heart sing, but I want you to think about why these things are going to make your heart sing and why doing these will be helpful to you and what impacts they will have for you. So I know, and I know a lot of people watching this video are going to be like, Heather, I just don't have the time for this. There's no way I can do this. I would really love to do this, but, and that but right there is a trigger, because it's one of those words that it's our subconscious mind telling us a story, and it's our subconscious mind convincing us that the story that it's creating is the reality. And I get it. I get that seemingly our lives feel like there's absolutely nothing more to give. But I promise you that you are the master of your own mind. You are in control of your own mind and your own life. And if something means enough to you, if the impact is greater than the consequence of not doing these things, you will make it happen. And I'm going to share a little bit of a personal story here to show you how much even just small impacts in your life can make a huge difference. So um, I had a little girl about 5, she's just over 5 now. And after I went back to work, I really started to struggle with feelings of just being empty, and there was a lot of things coming up for me. And I kind of hit a brick wall one day. I just realized, actually, I remember that I was in my car and I just completely broke down. I was commuting a lot, and I really started to take notice of what I was feeling and how empty I felt. So I started doing what I call a time audit. And so I started looking at my day and I started looking at what I was missing. And I wanted to try and figure out ways to inject more of what I was missing, given the timeline that I had. I couldn't change my day structure that much. I couldn't not have a job anymore. I couldn't not have a commute anymore. I couldn't do much besides inject little things into my day to help fill me with more of what I was lacking. So on this slide here, you get a snapshot of what my day looked like. So I was waking up about 5:15 in the morning. I was commuting an hour and a half to work in the morning. I was working 8 to 4 and I was commuting 2 hours home. And then I was making dinner. I was bathing and putting my little girl to bed. I was making lunches for the next day. And then I'd watch TV for a little while and then go to sleep. But what I was lacking in those moments is I had zero time with my husband during the week. I had no time with my daughter. I had no time for myself. I had no downtime, no exercise, and no growth and development. And that's where I was. I was like, okay, well, this is the issue. I have all this stuff that I need to do, but I also need this other stuff in my life in order for me to feel fulfilled and happy and joyous. So what I started to do is filling my day more and more with the little things, not adjusting my day a lot, but just making small adjustments to my day that was going to fill me with more joy and more of the things that I really wanted. So here's what I started to do. And add a caveat to this, that I didn't change all of this in one go. I made small changes and then started compounding more and more small changes, and it started making huge impacts for me. So I didn't adjust my wake up time because that was the reality, but I started adding time with my husband during my commute into work. He also worked downtown. So I said, "Hey, honey, why don't you come in the car with me?" And we would have that hour and a half commute in the morning together. I'd still work my 8 to 4. However, I took my lunch break outside. It gave me a bit of a break. It gave me some fresh air. It gave me some time to myself, more like my downtime. I'd still have my 2 hour commute home, but rather than focusing on my 2 hour commute home, I really poured in my energy into learning and growing and listening to podcasts and audiobooks during that time. And that one, I'll tell you right away, made the most impact for me. That was actually the one I started with first, and everything else kind of started after that. But that was me claiming back time that I felt like it was being stolen from me before, and it made a huge difference. Also started to meditate 10 minutes in the car before picking up my daughter. So even though I had a 2 hour commute and I was rushing home to get to my daughter, I felt like it was more important for me to take that 10 minutes to meditate prior to picking her up. So I would make sure to be calm and balanced when I got her. And yeah, at first I did feel a little bit of guilt thinking, oh my gosh, I'm taking another 10 minutes away from being with my daughter. But the impact of that 10 minutes far outweighed the actual 10 minutes that I wasn't with my daughter. It's only 10 minutes, but the impact was far, far greater than anything that I ever could have imagined. Another thing that I was lacking was time with my daughter. So I started making dinner with my daughter. I would try to anyway, and didn't always work with a 2 year old, but it was an activity that I did try and do with her to give us some activity to do. I'd still bathe and put my little girl to bed. I'd make lunches for the next day. And then because I wasn't really getting any exercise throughout the day, I started doing light yoga 10 minutes before bedtime, and then I would go to bed at 10 p.m. So my day structure didn't change drastically, but what I did is I injected it with small things that were going to make big impacts for me. So I don't necessarily love to share personal stories, but I thought that this could kind of help you understand that sometimes it takes a bit of creativity when you're thinking about timelines and day and time management, and small and making sure you're putting energy into things that will give you big impacts. So now I want you to go back to the list that you created and think about the 3 to 5 things that you wrote down, and how I want you to create a plan for yourself around how you are going to put some energy into doing those things more. Again, it's not about just creating this list. You got to think about how you're going to get them in your lives. And a goal without a plan is just a wish. So if you want to make sure that you actually put these things into action and you inject more of your life with these things, you've got to come up with a plan. And that's exactly what we're going to do. And how I suggest to make a plan is actually called, it's following the SMART goals plan. And I don't know if you've heard of this before, but I'll just briefly go over it. So when you're creating a plan for yourself and a goal, you have to make sure that it follows specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So when you think about the 3 to 5 things, you have to be very specific about what you're going to do. You can't just say, I'm going to exercise more. You have to be very specific about, okay, what exercise am I going to do? Am I going to run for 30 minutes? Or am I going to run? Am I going to do yoga? Am I going to do boxercise? Or whatever the actual specific activity is, you need to be very clear with it. The next thing you want to make sure that you do is that you make the plan measurable, in the sense of how often are you going to be doing this? Are you going to be doing it every day, every second day, every 2 weeks, whatever makes the most sense for the activity that you're doing? It has to be attainable, in the sense of it has to be realistic. You don't want to say to yourself, okay, I'm going to start running 4 days a week when you've never run before. You need to make sure that it's attainable and realistic for you to actually do this. You also have to think about your resources. Is it attainable for you to go get a massage every 2 weeks, financially speaking, or whatever the situation comes up? You want to make sure that it's a realistic, attainable goal for you. You don't want to set yourself up for failure. You also want it to be relevant, and that's what I was talking about, the big impacts. You have to make sure that whatever goal and plan you set for yourself, that it's relevant. So it's going to make a big impact for how you're feeling, and you understand what that impact will be, and you know how to, when things happen or you end up falling off, you can go back to the relevancy and the impact that those actions are going to have for you. And the last thing is you want it to be time bound. So again, it kind of comes down to the measurability of your plan. How often you're going to do this and when are you going to do it? You have to get very specific, even with a plan, in regards to, okay, I'm going to run 2 days a week. Well, when are you going to run? Are you going to run the morning, the afternoon, or the evening? Are you going to run as soon as you wake up? Or are you going to run at 7 a.m.? You want to get as narrow as you possibly can with your plan, so there's no arguments, there's no excuses. Excuse me. So you definitely want to get as specific as you can around the time, um, when you're going to do this activity. So this is where you can write down your smart plan on the other side of your piece of paper, and figuring out how, you are going to implement the plan to do these 3 to 5 items. Now, again, it probably take you a few minutes to complete this task. So if you are writing these down now, I urge you to pause your video and then come back to finish it off once you've created your plan. So remember to make your plan specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So one of the biggest lessons that's happened for me, in the past few years, is that happiness doesn't just happen by chance. It's a choice. And I know that's kind of a harsh statement, but the reality of it is that happiness is something that you have to work for. It's a muscle that you have to work towards, and you have to keep working at it. And once you have happy, it's not something that you just forget about. It takes focus and deliberate thought and action in order for you to choose to start finding and following your happiness. And I want you to think about, the impacts of these activities. And maybe after this video, you decide that the activities that you wrote down aren't actually the ones you're going to put time and energy in. But hopefully, what this video is able to do is give you some clarity on what kinds of things are going to give you the most impact. How could you be doing these activities, and how is that going to make you feel? And how is having that feeling in your life going to change you? What are the outcomes of the desire that you have to have these feelings? And how will it feel once you actually have those feelings in your life? It's all about forward momentum. So thinking about the outcomes of these activities and how they're going to impact you. And let's say you're able to implement these activities every day in your life. What do you think that that would feel like for you? And how could that change your life? How could that change your ability to interact with people, with your friends, or your family, your career? How is that going to positively benefit your life? The other thing that I just want to address as well is that when you are changing behavior, it's really important to practice loving kindness with yourself as well. When some things come up, because they inevitably will, it's life, things will happen. And when things go wrong, just don't abort the mission. I urge you, please, to just be kind to yourself and say, you know what, that happened. I don't have control over it. It's in the past. I'm going to regroup, refocus, and start the plan again. And that's okay. It's all about the journey, and it's all about helping you learn more about yourself. You could learn, something more about your behaviors and what you actually need in order to change your behavior, or something more that you need about yourself, or a new strategy for yourself. It's not about the end goal necessarily. It's all about the journey and what you can learn about yourself, and how you can understand how taking care of yourself is one of the most important things that you can do, not only for yourself, but for your family and your friends and your career. So be patient with yourself, because change takes time. And how you feel today is a culmination of your habits from yesterday. So really think about what you're doing today and how it's impacting your overall goal. And maybe doing a time audit to figure out what you could be doing to change how you feel, and keeping you more moving forward. So thank you so much again for watching this video. I really, really hope that you got some valuable information and ideas and inspiration from it. I can't tell you how passionate I am to help people figuring out how to inject more of this in their life. If everyone was as passionate as I am about this, I think the world would be a different place. And if there's anything I can do for you, please reach out. You can email me at connectingtobliss@gmail.com. You can reach out to me on Instagram at Heather the Coach, or on Facebook at Connecting to Bliss Coaching. I offer everyone a free discovery call to find out ways that I can help you in regards to my coaching. But even if you're just looking for more direction on how to implement what we talked about in this session, please reach out. Again, it's connectingtobliss@gmail.com, or on Instagram at Heather the Coach, or at Connecting to Bliss Coaching on Facebook. So again, thank you so much for your time and energy, and I hope you enjoyed this video.